All right. I guess we'll begin for now. Hi everyone. I think it's been over a month since we had our last AMA. I'm really excited to kind of talk to you guys again and tell you guys a little bit about the latest updates. You guys asked a lot of questions this time about the testnet, about TGE, mainnet, public sale, funding related questions, as well as product/technical questions. So I think we'll kind of go. Uh, I guess in order of the categories, and then we'll start with testnet related questions, and then we'll kind of go on from there. Um, so if you guys are ready, so the first question, probably one of the most commonly asked questions, is when will the testnet end? So the testnet itself, we are currently planning on having it end around the time we do our TGE. Basically, probably right before the TG, the testnet will end. We'll probably take a snapshot around then, and then we'll distribute. So it will be a kind of very last minute snapshot, and then you guys can kind of redeem, I guess, within the day or a few days, kind of leading up to the TGE launch. So I know it's not too much time, but of course, you guys can also redeem after the TG as well, because we'll give you guys a decent amount of time to be able to do that. Also, one thing I should probably state is if you guys have additional questions while this AMA is live, just feel free to ask that in the general chat. Our team will gather them, and then I'll try to answer as many as I can. So the second question is, can you clarify the breakdown of the 5% allocated for airdrop, including if there is vesting? Is 50% still for POH, proof of humanity verified users, or has this changed with the increased allocation? So there is no vesting for the 5% airdrop, so there will be zero vesting. So as soon as you, I guess the tokens are given to you, like on the time of TGE, and you, I guess, get it in your wallet, you'll get 100% of it. For the 5% allocated airdrop, 50% will still be for the POH verified users, and 50% will be for those who are not. And amongst those users, we are still so amongst those two categories, we're still figuring out the exact kind of breakdown in terms of how much is allocated towards analog watch related quests, how much is allocated towards dev quests, etc. We don't have the final answer yet because we want to wait till right before we take a snapshot, before we determine the final numbers there. I hope that is a satisfactory answer. We don't want to, I guess, create categories a little bit too easy and then have people be able to game these things if we kind of tell people all the answers already. And also, we of course don't know what the statistics are going to be like around that time just yet. The third question that we've been asked is could you guys please let us know how many people have completed the proof of humanity? So we currently have about so just give you guys some context. The proof of humanity is basically kind of like in a sense, a KYC for those users who like in the testnet. So you don't have to KYC in order to get rewards, but if you do kind of complete the proof of humanity, you'll get more rewards because 50% of it will be allocated to those who complete it. And currently we have about 35,000, probably a little bit more than 35,000 who have completed proof of humanity based on kind of the 99% humanity threshold. We anticipate there being probably like closer to 50K by the time we launch our mainnet, if not more. But also one thing that I think we'll announce pretty soon is we'll make it a lot easier for people to complete the proof of humanity. Because I think we've been getting a lot of, I guess, issues on certain people not being able to complete it at the 99% threshold. So we might, we are looking to announce potentially, I guess, decreasing the minimum threshold and then having different rewards for people who complete the 99% versus the 90%. So that way we can get more, I guess, human users into this platform and make it a little bit easier for people to kind of, I guess, join the ecosystem, if that makes sense. The fourth question that we've gotten around the testnet is, can we know the eligibility requirements for the airdrop? So, for example, like the minimum number of ATPs. So, the current idea that we have is that there will be a minimum for people who don't complete the POH, because though that number is like hundreds of thousands of people, and obviously if you distribute 5% of the token supply to hundreds of thousands of people, like the minimum, like if you only have, let's say, one ATP, you're going to get very little tokens, right? If we do it linearly. However, for everyone who does complete the POH, even if you have one ATP, the current plan is to give out analog tokens to those who complete the POH, as long as you have at least that minimum, I guess, one ATP. For those who haven't completed the POH, there will be a minimum threshold. So, for example, let's say the total population is 100% of users. There might be a certain percentage of that 100% who get, I guess, rewards. So there will be like a cutoff that's fairly generous that we haven't exactly figured out yet. And that specific cutoff will depend on, I guess, the metrics at the time of snapshot. Will there be new testnet tasks after the mainnet launch related to the mainnet? So this is kind of the last question that we've gotten beforehand related to the testnet. And so, yes, there will be. So as I mentioned, the testnet will end after, actually like right before the TGE, but the TGE will be after the mainnet launch. So we're going to launch the mainnet and then have that run for a little bit, make sure that everything is smooth, and then we'll launch the TGE. I think I mentioned this last time as well. So there will be some testnet tasks that I think we'll announce very, very soon related to Pixelport, as well as like a few things kind of on the Pixelport ecosystem that are kind of built on top. So the next few tasks are not going to be dev tasks as much, but they're going to be tasks that community members could also kind of play around with. So the idea is that we want even non-technical users to kind of use something that's built on top of ANLOG. So stuff that's not like ANLOG Watch, etc., but something that's like actually like an end user app. And then we're going to launch a few of those. And then, so for the final weeks before the TGE, those are kind of the tasks that I think we plan on having people do. Another question that's kind of unrelated to any of the things that we mentioned is, and this is, I guess, not in any of these categories. So in case some of you guys don't know, there used to be a previous ANLOG logo, and people are wondering why we kind of change it to the new ANLOG logo. So the previous ANLOG logo was kind of like, if you guys see the current ANLOG logo, there's kind of like a clock, and then there's like analog right after it, right? So it's clock analog. But the old logo, I think this was maybe about a year ago, was like anal, like ANAL, and then the O was like a clock, and then the G, right? So there's and it's really cool. So actually, the reason why I think this is kind of interesting is because actually very, very recently, I've actually gotten a DM by a community member saying that they'll actually launch kind of like a potentially like a community related meme coin. I don't know when they'll launch that exactly, but it's kind of related to the idea of like anal and how that relates to the ANLOG logo. So really excited to see how that looks. And I don't know, once again, when exactly that will be announced, but hopefully we'll kind of see that in the ecosystem and see how the community, I guess, likes it. But I don't know exactly who's launching it at the moment. So let's see how it goes. All right. Next questions are related to the TGE. So the first question is, of course, when is the TGE? Okay, so obviously, like a lot of people ask this question. So I guess we still don't have an exact answer here, but I think the right answer to say is one is after the mainnet by probably like a few weeks. And then 2 is it's going to be after we have our public sales. Okay, so I'm going to go over the idea of the public sales a little bit later. So it's probably going to be a little bit so if we plan on launching a mainnet later this month, it's going to be like a little bit after that. The next question is in which exchanges do you plan on listing the token? In terms of that, we cannot publicly disclose what exchanges we plan on listing the token, but we do believe we have a pretty good, I guess, balance of exchanges that we will go to market with. And I think we will announce that a little bit later. But rest assured, we have been talking to multiple exchanges about the launch of the ANLOG token, and we kind of like how the conversations have been going so far. All right. So the next questions are about the mainnet. And okay, the question is, how will the mainnet launch without TGE? Because I suppose we can't do anything in network without the gas token. So like the analog gas token. So yeah, so that's true. So the mainnet is really like a dev launch. It's just kind of like a soft launch to make sure that the network itself is stable for a little bit before we kind of open the floodgates to users, right? So we're gonna have things like validators join. Make sure like validators, like everything is stable there. Make sure that we're producing blocks solidly. Make sure that exchanges are able to integrate with analog, like the analog network, and that everything there is smooth. And then we will basically do the TG. So I guess the Genesis block will kind of launch without the TGE. But yeah, it's true that in order for you to like actually kind of interact with apps in the analog ecosystem, you're going to have to need the analog token. But as soon as the TG itself happens, which is shortly after mainnet, you're going to be able to use it. And also, like, I think some people are saying, it seems like in Discord, TG is on Q2 2025, but that is not true. It's definitely going to be before that. So, I mean, unless there's some disaster that happens, it's going to be before Q2 of 2025. So that we're pretty sure of. So not sure where people heard that from, but that is just not true. So now there's questions related to public sale. So the question is, I've heard that you'll have a public token sale later. Is that true? The answer is yes, that is true. We will actually have multiple public token sales with different structures, with different public sale platforms. We can't announce exactly which platforms they are, but they're platforms that I think people know pretty well. I guess very reputable platforms, we hope. And we can't announce any valuation or specific amount that we're trying to sell exactly yet. But it's probably going to be a few percent of the total analog supply to the public. And then the kind of specific mechanisms of the public sale are going to differ between the few public sale platforms that we work with. So we're probably looking to announce these things like maybe a week or two after today, hopefully. And then yeah, and then see how that goes. So one thing is we have a comment saying don't do POH to make it easier for everyone. Stick with 99%. So the reason why we want to lower the threshold a little bit, of course, like I mentioned, we want to get more people through. But also like those who complete the 99% threshold likely will have a higher, I guess, score than people who don't complete the 99% threshold. So there's two thresholds. There's like the 90% threshold and like the 99% plus. So there might be different kind of subcategories amongst people who complete the POH as well. That will be weighted based on also like how many ATPs they have as well. Okay. Is it so the next question is related to funding. So the question is, is it true that the project is undergoing strategic financing? Is there any further information that can be disclosed? So yes, that is true. But we can't publicly announce anything just yet. We'll probably announce something around the time we do a public sale, depending on how that goes, and kind of like the timelines around that. But we cannot currently announce the results of that just yet. The next question is, when will you refund the pre-sale? So very, very soon. So that would probably be like within a few days from now. We're currently just finalizing the portal to kind of conduct the refunds, and then once that's finalized, we're gonna launch it. So hopefully that answers you guys' questions pretty well. Okay. So any additional questions on any of the categories I already talked about? Of course, you guys could keep asking questions afterwards as well. But just curious if there's any outstanding questions related to like public self-funding, mainnet, TG, or testnet. I think you guys could just write on Discord. Yeah, we got a question asking how many have completed POH, but the answer is about 35K right now, and we anticipate at least 50K. Cool. So, so another question is kind of, I guess, also on the Discord chat related to the TG is, or like, I guess, comment is, projects are in a hurry, but why does ANLOG want to delay the project? Blah, 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 related to the public sale, for example, and the public sale will run for a certain amount of time. Well, we want to make sure the project itself launches successfully with as much public attention as possible. So, now that the market conditions are better, we want to be one of the early projects to launch it. So we still want to launch as early as we can, given all the technical requirements that needs to be done. So as soon as basically everything is ready, the quests are kind of ready, and the community sentiment is maximized, we're going to launch it, right? So we do want to launch it as soon as we can. We don't want to delay it because we of course want to, I guess, to launch it in the best possible market conditions. But it's just we need to make sure that everything is aligned properly. Also, another thing is the mainnet will, so related to the mainnet, I think some people say there's a delay on the mainnet and TGE. The mainnet, we are still planning on launching it this month, by the way. So I think that has not really been delayed much, if at all. So the current plan is to still do that, make sure that I guess we do that as soon as possible. And then I guess with haste, launch a TG afterwards. Okay. Cool. So the next questions are related to the roadmap and the product. Okay. So the first question is, I want to ask, what is the roadmap after mainnet? So the answer is there. So there's quite a few things that we want to launch after mainnet. So one thing is we really kind of want to position ourselves as I guess, the premier interoperability platform between not just EVM ecosystems, but also like non-EVM related ecosystems. So our goal is to be the first ecosystem to integrate like Solana, Ton, and like the MoveVM ecosystem. So MoveVM being like Movement, Aptos, and Sui, for example. So the idea is that this way it will be a lot easier for more projects to integrate with ANLOG, because right now, like as far as we know, there's actually no interoperability solution that have integrated the combination of all of them. there's, we believe, one interoperability solution that has integrated Solana so far, but that has taken them quite a bit. So one of the main advantages of Analog's architecture is it's actually very, very easy for us to integrate additional chains compared to our competitors. So to give you guys I guess a comparison, it probably takes us about a month or two to integrate like a new non-EVM chain. And the EVM chain generally only takes like a few days to about a week. So this basically gives us a huge advantage, and especially integrating with the non-EVM chains because there's just so many untapped ecosystems right now for interoperability at the moment. So the next question related to the I guess roadmap and product is related to tokenomics. So the question is are the tokenomics details finalized? So the answer is not fully finalized, but it's pretty close to there. So what's publicly announced is kind of close to there, but there's a few unknowns, such as how many exact tokens we sell in like a public sale, etc. That we don't know yet. And of course, like previous question, why are you even doing a public sale? Which relates to this is because we want to have the maximum runway possible so that we don't have to sell analog tokens to the market after we launch from the foundation in order to kind of sustain our runway, right? Because obviously, if we do that too much, that would dump the market to some extent. So we of course want to make sure that we have the maximum runway possible before we launch in order to do that and get more users as well kind of into the mainnet as a result as well, because there's more token holders in general. The next question is, what are the biggest challenges the team anticipates in the coming years post-launch? I think probably the biggest challenge that we'll face is, I guess one is kind of seeing what new ecosystems are out there, because we don't exactly know like what's kind of like the latest technology that's going to be there maybe like a year or two from now. And we're going to have to like, I guess, progress very quickly in order to solve that kind of problem. So in that note, we have a really good solution technically to solve it. So as a lot of you guys may know, ANLOG is built using the Substrate SDK. So it's the same SDK that's used to, for example, build Polkadot and build, like, for example, BitTensor, for example. And the main advantage, in our opinion, that SDK gives us is kind of the live upgradability of the platform. So essentially, so essentially the idea is like, as there's new technology that kind of comes, we can basically integrate it into Analog's tech. So Analog's tech is fluid, right? It's not like, oh, so we have like NPOS and we have like TSS and everything, like this current architecture, and that's going to be like the final architecture in the long run. There's a bunch of stuff we're planning after the mainnet. So there's stuff like being able to kind of deploy one smart contract on just Analog and then have that deployed on every chain that you want to integrate with. So basically the idea of like not having to deploy so many smart contracts on so many chains, for example, and a bunch of technology like more related to the security side of things that we want to integrate. And those are going to be enabled by, I guess, the live upgradability of Analog. I hope that does answer the question to some extent. The next question is, what is the main focus of Analog at this time? So the main focus of Analog really is to get this thing launched, right? Like we're basically trying everything we can to get it launched as soon as we can, and with as much leverage as we possibly can, as much excitement in the market as we can, and like as much hype as possible, right? So like basically everyone's full steam ahead in making sure that that works out. So the next question that we've gotten is how does the future look for products slash utility that wish to build on the analog network? So we currently have about 50 applications that are being built on the analog network. So these applications vary between like tons of different verticals. So you have like stuff like prediction markets, you have AI related projects, you have like DeFi, gaming, NFTs, etc. And one cool thing about NFTs, I think, is there's a recent renaissance of I guess NFT usage and price, because now that the market is more bullish again, people want to show off their profile pictures again. So we're pretty excited about the kind of apps that are being built on analog already. In terms of the future, I think right now, like from a BD perspective, we're really trying to go after, I guess, like the really high tier projects, like the projects that, like, I guess, like the very well known projects that are built on the analog network, to be built on analog network. So projects that like everyone would probably be aware of. And actually, on that note, there is one project right now that we are very, very close to finalizing with. And if things go smoothly, we'll announce that very soon, probably within a week or so. Fingers crossed. Cool. In the blog, so the next question is, in the blog article on the analog website, it was mentioned that after the mainnet launch, anyone can run a validator node without a whitelist. Now that the mainnet is approaching, is this information still valid? So yes, that information is still valid. So as many of you guys know, Analog will launch with like an NPOS consensus mechanism. In the testnet, we had to whitelist certain validators because there was like 3,000 or so validators that applied to kind of be part of the active set on the testnet, but we just couldn't accommodate all of them, I guess, without the system on the testnet being overloaded. So we wanted to kind of slowly, I guess, decentralize that validator set on the testnet. So that's why that was a problem. On the mainnet side, basically that's going to change, right? So people could essentially start nominating validators that they trust. And there's going to be still some at launch, like a limited number of validators, but those validators are going to be essentially validator nodes that are allowed to run without a whitelist. So if certain validator nodes get enough votes, they can become, I guess, part of the active set and then start, I guess, participating in consensus. Okay. So we have more questions. So the next question is, can you explain cross-chain messaging and how it may evolve in the future? So I guess cross-chain messaging is basically the idea of like I guess having like a transaction or some sort of other type of message on chain that's sent on one chain that's picked up by, I guess, analog in our ecosystem, like by nodes in the analog ecosystem, and then sent to the other ecosystem. Okay, so like that's basically what cross-chain messaging is, right? So it's basically a message that gets sent within one ecosystem, picked up, and then relayed to another ecosystem. In terms of how it may evolve in the future, that's a really good question. There's quite a few ways to do cross-chain messaging right now. The way that Analog is approaching this is probably like the most straightforward way to kind of do this, in the sense that the idea of having nodes directly relay the messages is I think it might not be like the most technically elegant method, but it's like the most like tried and true, I guess, way for these messages to be delivered. And I think in the future, there will be more and more ways to kind of deliver these messages. And the types of messages that you can deliver might be a little bit more complex as well. And there's of course like stuff that's also kind of being developed these days, like intents, for example, the idea of like a solver to kind of do like cross-chain swaps, for example. And these are all things that actually Analog is integrating with as we speak, and that Analog will kind of be part of that, I guess, forefront as well in terms of, I guess, innovation in cross-chain messaging technology. Okay, one sec. Okay, so the next question is, what are Chronicle nodes that Analog GMP aims to improve in terms of decentralization and security, and how does it work? Okay, so Chronicle nodes are essentially nodes that monitor external networks and then relays the messages to the analog network, and then as well as take the message from the analog network that's validated and then relays it to external networks. Right now, the Chronicle nodes are actually on day one going to be fairly centralized because it's actually very, very difficult to kind of do that sort of Chronicle node technology to make it decentralized on day one. But I think within a few months after launch, we're going to decentralize it, right? So right now, like our main goal is to have the actual validation of the messages be decentralized. So because like Chronicle nodes don't actually validate the message per se on the analog chain, right? So the nodes on the analog chain itself will validate the Chronicle nodes messages, and that will be decentralized. However, the Chronicle nodes themselves will be decentralized very, very soon, and I think you'll be able to see that relatively shortly. Okay, the next question is how secure is Analog? So I would say Analog is quite secure. Analog is essentially secured by this whole set of validators that power the Analog ecosystem. So I think generally, if you trust the security of the Analog blockchain, so like the time chain that we're developing, you can probably trust the security of the Analog network as well. Hopefully that answers your question there. 1 second. Sorry, there's okay. Next question. Time chain uses the nominated proof of stake model, NPOS, to enhance security. However, what additional security or incentive mechanism is planned to prevent validators from engaging in malicious activities in this model? So there's quite a few things that were like that, I guess, help solve this problem. So one is basically securing inbound/outbound transactions via TSS. So Chronicle nodes essentially act as validators for specific blockchains, as I mentioned. However, like the transactions themselves, like that the Chronicles actually observe, are only submitted after going through like a TSS consensus process, which basically like you have multiple Chronicles looking at one blockchain, let's say, and then you'll need like a super majority of those nodes signatures in order for a transaction to go through. In addition, the Chronicle nodes themselves are actually rotated periodically. So basically, the idea is like if you have like those Chronicle nodes and they're all validating the same network at the same time, though that could potentially be, I guess, attacked, right? Because if you bribe those specific Chronicle nodes on those specific blockchains, you might be able to essentially influence the message. However, with key rotations, essentially the Chronicle nodes will essentially be churned periodically, and then they'll be replaced by standby nodes. So you can't figure out what Chronicle nodes you need to bribe at what time in order to kind of make sure that transaction goes through or to manipulate the transaction. Also, of course, like the time chain itself being decentralized helps. And one thing that we've, I think, never talked about publicly in terms of security feature is what we call time chain safe mode. So essentially, time chain safe mode is it's like an inbuilt redundancy feature that allows for time nodes and validators to temporarily suspend most core protocol functions in response to security threats or instabilities. So once it's activated, the safe mode essentially allows for validators to continue authoring blocks at processing extrinsics and events and halting other protocol tasks like key rotations, etc., and cross-chain messages in order to kind of fix any issue related to, I guess, the Chronicle network, I guess, being faulty. There's 4 more questions now. So left. So if you guys have more questions, feel free to ask those on Discord but there's 4 more questions related to the product. Actually, this is probably like the most product-related answer-heavy AMA that we've gotten so far. Most of the other AMAs have been a lot more related to the testnet. So I'm definitely glad that people are actually curious about the technology itself. So the question is, ANLOG's unified API provides developers with the convenience of multi-threaded queries, but how does this API manage large number of concurrent queries and avoid potential bottlenecks for scalability and performance? It's a pretty loaded question, but the idea is the answer, I guess, or one answer is that Analog Watch is designed to offer reliable and performant multi-chain indexing through various optimizations, such as, for example, leveraging node worker threads in JavaScript to parallelize block fetching and block processing, optimizing cache sizes, basically with Analog Watch employing a store to improve like index efficiency, etc., and as well as like rate limits and DDoS mitigation. So we have quite a few technologies to make sure that I guess our unified API keeps working regardless of external conditions. The next question is, how does Analog as a project plan to adapt to the possible regulatory changes in the space in the coming days? I think we've as a project, we've generally striked a good balance and middle ground between, I guess, being very regulatorily careful and not. So as an example, like I used to be, I guess, head of strategic growth at Parity. So that's the company behind Polkadot, and Parity was extremely regulatorily, I guess, careful with regards to kind of how it behaved publicly as well as privately. But Analog is a little bit more flexible there. We understand that, I guess, generally the space is still new and that a lot of regulatory things are not figured out. We do have a very solid legal counsel that we talk to pretty much every day to answer a lot of these regulatory questions. And I think now with, I guess, Trump winning the election, I think there's going to be significant ease in regulation with regards to how Analog can scale. So on that end, that even allows us to, for example, talk to US-based exchanges in order to, I guess, potentially have US users in the future look at the Analog token. Of course, like this is still stuff that we're trying to figure out right now, but it's something that we're exploring at the moment. The next question, so there's 2 more questions left that's pre-asked, so almost there. What specific solutions or technologies will Analog use to surpass competitors like Wormhole and Layer 0? That's a really good question. So Wormhole and Layer 0 are like probably like the most popular interoperability solutions in terms of who our competitors are in the market. And we like to position Analog as the most complete interoperability solution out there. So the idea is Wormhole and Layer 0 offer stuff like cross-chain messaging, and they do it with various security models. Wormhole itself, for example, is fairly centralized, and all their nodes are whitelisted, and they make that very, I guess, very clear that that's how it works. And then Layer 0, of course, there's a lot of issues with, I guess, the security settings, like the default security settings of Layer 0 that projects have to work with, and there's a lot of attack vectors essentially with regards to we believe in that architecture. So besides just architectural differences, Analog we are designing it to be just a lot more full featured and a lot easier for people to kind of build more complex cross-chain applications. So as an example, like Analog Automation is a product that we're building that we are going to launch, which as far as I know, our competitors do not have yet. I think Layer 0 is building something similar now, but we've been building it for longer than they have. And then other sort of supplementary developer applications to kind of allow for, I guess, us to really kind of enable developers to build more stuff. And then, okay, so final question is, how many tokens will you sell in the public sale? So I think the probably like if I were to give a very high level answer to that, the answer would probably be like 5 to 10 million USD worth. I know it's a pretty big range, but we don't exactly know the final valuation of the tokens yet, because that not only depends on the market conditions on the day that we launch, but also kind of the mechanism in which we do the public sale. So, for example, if there's a fixed price public sale, obviously we would know what the valuation for that would be. But if that public sale is, let's say, an LBP, let's say, like a bonding curve based public sale, then you like that valuation of the token would be then determined by the community, right? So but the overall answer is there's a certain US dollar amount that we'll aim to sell, and the valuation will then be determined by the mechanisms through which the public sale proceeds. All right, and I guess that's all the questions that have been pre-asked. Are there any more questions that people have? Because we still have at least 14 minutes left in this AMA, and I know we've covered quite a bit already. So happy to cover more if people want. I'll give you guys a few minutes to potentially ask questions here on Discord. One question is or one comment that I think people are asking is hope you consider efforts not only proof of history because some people who do proof of history have only 100 to 200 ATP or even less than that. So the even within the 50% of tokens that are allocated towards the POH users, that 50% will be I guess like also like scale based on how much ATP you have. So if you have more ATP, you'll get more rewards, regardless of whether you'll do proof of history or not. I hope that answers your question. But of course, if you do proof of history, you'll get more ATP overall. More tokens overall. All right. Any more questions? Okay. One question is any extra rewards for leadership ranks? So I think generally if you're in the top 100 or whatever we don't have a threshold for this yet, but of course, like generally speaking, the more ATPs you have, you'll get more rewards, right? We're still figuring out the exact scaling of it, but the answer is just wait, and then we'll announce that fairly soon, because that really relies on the time in which we take this the snapshot. But yes, if the more ATPs you have, the better. And if you're on a certain leaderboard, you'll of course get more overall rewards than people who don't have that many ATPs. One thing I'd like to note is as I mentioned, there's like community members have messaged me about a meme coin, I guess very recently, and it seems like they've announced it now, or like at least on the Discord chat about like the ANLOG related meme coin. So looks pretty cool to me. So like it's a community effort, so like I don't know too much about it, but seems cool. Feel free to check it out if you guys want. All right, I'll give you guys maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to ask questions, and then I'll wrap it up if there are no questions after that. All right, it seems like there's no more questions right now, which is good. I mean, we've answered like 50 or so questions at least, or 40, at least 40 questions. So good to see that people are very curious about what's going on in the ecosystem and about our launch and TG, etc. So the final thing I'd like to note is that please check out the community content bounty. As we're launching pretty soon, we want community members to create cool content, and we've announced that on Twitter already. So feel free to take a look at that. And I guess if people want to create cool art, whether it's human generated or AI, feel free to do that. And then we'll reward people based on, I guess, the submissions. And yeah, and that's it. If there's no more questions, it was really great to kind of give you guys a update. And this might be the final update before we announce public sales and mainnet and TGE and such, because we're gonna do that so soon. But if you guys want another AMA before that, we're happy to do that as well. But let's see how things go. And in the meanwhile, happy to answer any questions you guys have after this AMA as well on Discord. Just feel free to ask. And great, thank you guys so much for attending, and hopefully we'll see you guys again soon.